Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. Today I'm here with Corey. Corey, thank you very much for coming on the show again.
Not a problem.
Absolutely. Today we want to talk about blanks and talk about the various uses and applications and things to be aware of, whether you're into reenacting, whether you're training, whether you're in the movie business, whatever you want. Blanks serve interesting purposes and they serve useful purposes at times. So Corey has a lot of personal experience in his field as a reenactor. How long have you been reenacting, by the way?
I've been reenacting since 2008.
2008, so
that's almost 10 years?
Almost a whole decade.
Almost a whole 10
So
years.
you literally have almost a decade of dealing with blanks in
Yep.
the reenacting field.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So please, can you take us off on blanks and tell us about them?
Well, the first thing is blanks are dangerous. There's been a lot of instances of people being killed by blanks. So don't ever think you cannot be killed by a blank. You absolutely can. So
Not only being killed by blanks themselves, but also being killed by contaminating
Right.
live rounds with blank rounds or blank rounds with live rounds.
yes, there's been several instances, unfortunately, where people mix those and bad things do happen with those.
I think a lot of that is more in the training aspect of law enforcement or military training and less in reenacting and in Hollywood.
There have been, well, with Hollywood, no, not with Hollywood because they don't use live rounds.
Yeah.
But with reenacting, there have been a couple instances where at a reenactment they'll do a live shoot portion and then they'll go do a reenactment battle, and sometimes the blanks or the live rounds aren't taken out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's not good. When was the last time this happened? Or
I think there was about 2 years ago. I think down south. I think there was an incident that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 years, that's a pretty good record, though, for the whole reenacting field in general.
Yeah, it's still a very big concern of ours. That's why at every reenactment, before we do anything, every time in the morning, we always go through and have a safety authenticity check.
Mm-hmm.
The safety check is making sure you check all of your ammunition pouches, make sure you don't have any live rounds on you at all. So obviously blanks, they don't have a projectile on them. There are some versions of blanks that have wood tips, but you have to have a shredder on those to properly use them. Now, they're just meant to have the muzzle flash, the sound of it.
And when you talk about the shredder, what's that? Is that the muzzle?
Yeah, it's on the muzzle. It's some Swedish foreign one. It's not very common, so you don't see it a lot.
Okay.
But obviously with bolt action rifles, you don't need anything special to convert it over to blanks. You just let it shoot. Now the problem or the issue, the difficulties arise when you have semi-automatic rifles because the pressure behind the bullet cycles the action. Well, with blanks, you don't have that. So you have to modify the rifle a little bit, but it still has its value, has its live fire function if you choose to live fire it. But you put on what's called a blank fire adapter, BFA.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different styles. The military has developed BFAs for pretty much all of their firearms. Hollywood has done it too. There's different types and there's pros and cons to each type.
So you mentioned today something I hadn't thought about is that there's more obtrusive BFAs, which we use in the service, which are more brightly colored, red, yellow. Right. They're stuck on the end of a muzzle.
Right.
They want everybody to see that this is a BFA attached and not
Correct.
a live firearm, so to speak.
Correct.
And then we also have more of the Hollywood or reenacting kind, where you don't want something obtrusive and you want something stuck inside the muzzle.
Right.
Okay, explain that. Yeah.
So there's special blank adapters that they're not brightly colored, they're not brightly painted. They may just screw onto the end and you can screw it off, or with Hollywood, what they do is they actually drill and tap the end of the weapon to take a set screw.
Okay.
Okay. Now the set screws have specific hole sizes drilled in each one to cycle the action because sometimes you need more back pressure to cycle the action with blanks.
Okay. And you were talking about the finickiness of some of this, and we shot some blanks and live rounds today. Mentioned that and some of the issues that we just encountered today with shooting some of your firearms with blanks and live.
Yeah. Some of the surplus blanks, the loads are sometimes different, or the weather affect them. That something could get into them and ruin them. Even blanks that are specifically made for reenacting and for Hollywood, sometimes something happens, but most of the time those are more consistent. So, specially made blanks for reenacting are generally a little bit more consistent than surplus blanks.
Okay. And you were talking, so some of the surplus stuff you had some German stuff, you had some overseas stuff. What's the German stuff? That was interesting.
So the German stuff is actually, it was made in the 80s or 90s, if my memory serves me correctly. It's actually mostly plastic, and it's got an aluminum base. This cuts down a lot on the cost, cuts down on the weight. You don't have the price of brass. You can't recycle it or you can't reload it, unfortunately, but it's a lot cheaper.
And it's actually entirely polymer, too.
Except for the base, yeah. And I've only found those in 308 commonly, or 7.62 by 51. There have been other calibers made for other countries.
What would you say for people who are concerned about they want as much recoil as possible with blanks to make things feel as legitimate as possible? A lot of people say blanks don't have much recoil to begin with, or much muzzle flash.
That's just something you have to live with, unfortunately. Because the more back pressure you put on a gun, the harder it is. The harder it is on the action. We were running some hotter black blanks through the M1 Garand. That was actually, I was a little concerned about that because it was running really, really fast and really hot. The point with blanks is you actually want to dial your blank adapter so it will just barely work, but work consistently. That way you're not putting a lot of stress on these firearms.
You can buy blank cartridges on Proxibid for various lots. They are one of our online supporters, and they really help us get these videos out to you, our audience. We'd really appreciate it if you check them out, maybe even purchase some blanks on Proxibid. You might be happy with what you find.